Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something we all think we have, free will. We're diving into how our most human power, the power to choose, is being systematically re-engineered in this crazy digital world we all live in.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with a feeling I know you've had. Then we'll get into the psychology behind it, trace the history of how we even got here, peek at the hidden biases inside the code, and finally, and this is the important part, figure out what we can actually do about it. All right, let's kick things off with an experience that is just so modern. And honestly, so frustrating.
You know that feeling, right? Netflix paralysis. Let me tell you, it is not a personal failing. It's not just you. It's actually the perfect window into this massive shift in how we all make decisions. It's a symptom of a much, much bigger problem.
You know, psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called the paradox of choice. And it's this totally counterintuitive idea that when you see a menu with a million items, it doesn't make you feel free. It just makes you feel overwhelmed. And you end up being less happy with whatever you finally pick.
And here's the kicker, the crucial point. This feeling of being overloaded, it's not a bug in the system. It's a feature. Think about it. The longer you struggle to choose, the more you scroll, and the more engaged you are. For the platform, your indecision is literally a success metric.
So how does this actually work on us? Well, to get that, we need to look at how our own brains are hardwired, which it turns out makes us surprisingly vulnerable to this kind of manipulation.
You see, to deal with a really complex world, our brains take shortcuts. We call them cognitive biases. For example, anchoring bias. That's why we get stuck on the first price we see. Or confirmation bias, which is the reason our social media feeds just show us stuff we already believe. Online, these totally predictable shortcuts become super powerful levers for influence.
And you know, there's this simple, just brilliant experiment that perfectly illustrates this whole problem of having way too many options. And it all comes down to jam.
The results of this study were just fascinating. Researchers set up 2 displays in a grocery store. One had 24 different kinds of jam. The other, just 6. Now, the big display definitely got more eyeballs, more people stopped to look. But the small display, it resulted in 10 times more sales. It's just the perfect real-world example of how sometimes less really is more.
This overload really has 2 major consequences. First, you get decision paralysis. That's when we get so overwhelmed we just give up and choose nothing at all. And second, even when we do finally choose something, we're left with this nagging regret, always wondering if one of the other 100 options would have been better.
Now, this kind of environment didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's actually the result of a century-long evolution in the science of persuasion.
I mean, think about it. We went from those one-to-many broadcast ads in the 50s, the Mad Men era, to the first interactive websites in the 90s. And now we're in this crazy algorithmic era where every single one of us gets a unique, hyper-personalized, and incredibly persuasive message. And this right here illustrates a really profound flip. It used to be that we chose products to help build our identity. That was an aspirational model. But now, our identity, as defined by all our data, is used by algorithms to choose the products, the news, and even the people we get to see. It's a predictive model, not an aspirational one.
So this brings us to the systems that are making all these choices for us. And we have to talk about the dangerous myth that a machine, that code, can ever be truly objective.
See, the truth is, algorithms learn from data that humans create. And if our society's data is filled with historical biases, which, let's be honest, it is, the algorithm doesn't just learn them, it amplifies them with ruthless efficiency, and it does it at a massive, massive scale.
And the real-world consequences are just staggering. In U.S. hospitals, a very widely used algorithm basically decided that Black patients needed less care than white patients with the exact same conditions. Why? Because it was using past healthcare spending as a stand-in for health. It was effectively automating medical inequality. And in our courtrooms, an algorithm that was being used to predict criminal behavior, it was found to be twice as likely to falsely flag Black defendants as future reoffenders compared to white defendants. It was just perpetuating historical racial bias in these huge life-altering decisions.
And it happens in the corporate world, too. Amazon had to completely scrap an AI recruiting tool after it taught itself to prefer male candidates. Get this, it was even penalizing resumes that mentioned things like women's chess club captain. It was simply replicating decades of bias that was in the hiring data it was fed.
So, faced with all of this, what do we do? How do we fight back against the choice machine? Well, the resistance starts with our own habits, but it has to go so much further than that.
Okay, so we can build a personal toolkit of resistance. First, by setting boundaries, like just turn off your notifications, create a little friction. Second, be mindful, have a reason before you open an app. And third, actively seek out different perspectives. Break out of your filter bubble.
But look, our individual actions just aren't enough. True, lasting change means we have to redesign the system itself. We have to move away from a business model based purely on capturing our attention. We need government regulation for transparency. And we absolutely have to educate the next generation in digital literacy.
Ultimately, the path we're on, it isn't set in stone. It leads to a crossroads, a fork in the road, with two very, very different destinations for all of us.
One path leads to what you could call the managed self. It's a future of predictive confinement, where our lives are just laid out for us by algorithms. The other path, though, leads to the augmented self, where technology actually helps us overcome our biases, broadens our horizons, and frees us up to make the choices that truly matter.
That choice between those two futures, for now, is still ours to make. And every click, every scroll, every single moment of our attention, it's a vote for the world we want to live in. So, the question is, which one are you building?